The Russian attack on our democracy last year was an unprecedented act, and it was directed, obviously, at us and unprecedented in its success. In fact, the Russian government and the Soviets before them have long been working to destabilize their European neighbors, perfecting the techniques that were deployed so effectively here last year. While Russia has always devoted enormous intelligence resources towards countering what they refer to as the main enemy, it has had much greater success in mounting political operations in Europe, especially in Eastern and Central Europe, where there are populations of ethnic Russians or economic ties to Moscow. Many of the same macroeconomic and demographic forces that have buffeted our country in recent years are also present overseas and often to a greater degree. Across Europe, high unemployment, fraying social welfare systems, and graying populations are propelling right-wing and populist parties. The most consequential manifestation of this populist tide was the Brexit vote in Britain last June. Much as with Hillary Clinton in our own presidential election 4 months later, the Remain campaign was expected to prevail, but instead was overwhelmed by a late surge of older rural voters, a similar demographic to those who would later propel Donald Trump to victory. In France, Marine Le Pen, the National Front candidate who shares Trump's hostility to immigrants, skepticism of NATO, and affinity for Putin, is expected to make it through the first round of presidential voting and into a two-candidate runoff on May 7th. In Germany, where Angela Merkel faces re-election in September, the far-right Alliance for Germany is expected to improve on its previous performance and will probably meet the threshold required to gain seats in the German parliament. The party, founded just 4 years ago, has been riding a surge of support in reaction to the Merkel government's 2015 decision to admit large numbers of Syrian refugees. Hungary and Poland, two former Warsaw Pact states that are now both members of NATO and the European Union, are governed by right-wing parties that use the power of the state to undermine the judiciary, the press, and other pillars of civil society. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán famously boasted in a 2014 speech that the new state that we are building is an illiberal state, a non-liberal state. In Slovakia, another former Soviet satellite, Prime Minister Robert Fico has presided over a steady erosion of the country's rankings in terms of governance and transparency as he has worked to restrict civil liberties and judicial independence.